Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, but today we're actually doing our second book journey, and this time I have my good friend Raquel Stecher from Out of the Past, who's got a YouTube channel, but also a blog, Out of the Past. How are you doing, Raquel?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's my day off, so I feel I feel very happy that I'm finally away from work. What about you?
I love Sundays. It's also my day off and my day to just I watched a couple of movies this morning. I'm going to read a good book later. It's always a good day.
What did you watch this morning?
I watched two movies for research. One is called Lost Boundaries, and the other one is Home of the Brave. They're two of the problem pictures of the Lost Boundaries is a film about Mel Ferrer stars in, and he's part African American and he's passing as white. And then the other one is Home of the Brave, and James Edward is a Black soldier who he's the only Black soldier among a bunch of white soldiers. Mm-hmm. So there's like this racial tension, and he's had a traumatic event, and he is paralyzed, and he's trying to remember what he's forgotten about what happened. So they both deal with race in interesting ways. So I watched those today, and they were very interesting.
That sounds like a powerful morning, though.
Yeah, no, it was. It was a little overwhelming, but it was good.
Yeah, this morning I'm starting Rafifi, which is a French noir film.
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm a little bit into it. So I'll get to that a little bit later because Noirvember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited. But today,
you saw Out of the Past for the first time, right?
I know. Yeah.
I heard that.
I did it for Mitchum behind you, right there. No, it was great. I loved it, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later, kind of maybe this upcoming week, talking about maybe a recap of what I've been watching noir.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about it.
That's good. It's the best. It's the best.
It's the name of the blog and the channel, so of course. But it's a great noir. But yeah, today we're talking about books though, and we're probably going to be talking about films too. I know we are.
My two loves.
Yeah, of course. Like that's what I love about this this new discovery for me is like kind of just figuring out all my friends who are kind of in both worlds, and I really like that. And so so we're going to do our book journey today, and so I guess my first question always is, do you remember your earliest memories associated with books?
So it's really interesting because my mom reminds me of this story all the time. This is totally TMI, but she took out a potty book from the library and I was very little, and I loved that book so much. I would go to sleep with it, I would cuddle with it. She took it out from the library endless times because I was like obsessed with it. And I actually, got out of diapers really quickly because of the potty book. And that's been like the journey of my life, is a book empowering me in some way, So ever since then, I've been addicted to books because I felt like, this was a companion. This was like support system. It was emotional support, mental support, it was empowering. It's so many things. And actually, I have a book from my childhood here, and one thing is I have a lot of books here, so I'll be propping up some books too if they fit the conversation. This is a book I absolutely loved as a child. This is Sesame Street a sign language book, and I mean it's like literally falling apart.
Yeah.
It's an 8x8, and it's even like my name's inscribed in it and everything. And I have never forgotten like the alphabet in sign language. I can still do it to this day, many years later. And I can even there's one, I joke about this all the time. Like, let's see, this is falling apart. I can even do this sign here, which is do not feed the octopus. It's like a total nonsense. Like, I mean, they just did like
those are the things we remember though.
I can still do it. But the fact, like, for example, a few years ago, I was in gym class, and I met a gentleman who was hard of hearing, and he was asking me what my name was, and he couldn't lip read. He couldn't tell because Raquel is like kind of an unusual name. So he couldn't quite understand. I signed it for him. I was like, Raquel. And he was like, whoa. And I was like, yay, the one time I could use it. And
Sesame
it was
Street,
useful.
yes.
And it was because of this book.
Yeah. Well,
and I mean, I actually found a couple other books too, like with the first book journey that you filmed with Vanessa, she was talking about Fear Street books. I love the Fear Street books. Look how in poor condition this is. It was very well loved. I was reading these as a preteen a lot, like anything to do with teenagers, because I was at the point where I really wanted to learn more about the older kids.
Yeah, of course.
And I was a big horror kid. I loved horror movies, horror stories. Then I figured out that those things look like they hurt a lot, so maybe no. And I'm not. Now I'm like a scaredy cat when it comes to.
That's why you read
movies.
it, so you could be like, okay, maybe this isn't my cup of tea.
As a kid, I loved horror, so like I was a big R.L. Stine fan, and I had like so many of not only Fear Street. I was pre Goosebumps, but I had a lot of the other like trilogies and like little series that he did. And then like just one other book I have here to talk about is I was really, as a kid, I don't know why, but I was just very drawn to books about the Holocaust. I was just like, this is awful. I can't believe that people could be so horrible to others for no good reason. I was really moved by like the Diary of Anne Frank and Elie Wiesel's Night and stuff like that. And one thing this is also a very well-loved, well-worn copy of
I remember that. Yeah.
Mouse. This is the second one. And this is by Art Spiegelman. And I really wish there were more graphic novels when I was a kid, because I think I would have devoured more of them, because I was I'm still a very slow reader. So I didn't read a ton as a kid. It came more to me as a teenager. But I did read, and I like absolutely loved books, especially books about animals. But I was really drawn to like anything about the Holocaust, and I think that helped me become a more empathetic adult, because I was learning about, injustices and like how people can be really horrible to other people, and learning about the past, and how if we learn about the past, how it will help us in the future. So yeah, a book like this is like the second part where it takes place in, it's not Auschwitz, it's Mauschwitz, and it's about the escape and the life after. And I just read this so many times. I was just fascinated and horrified, and I think it was singular in helping me become who I was as an adult, and like, the compassion I feel for other people. Not like tooting my own horn, but it really does, like, books make a difference in that way. If they show you what another person's experience is like, it like really opens up your world in a way that you couldn't necessarily, just living your regular life without reading books.
Yeah. And something like that, like there's like the creative aspect of like the personification of, mice into this real life context that, normally, like, if most of us probably are not super interested, or like just in like cold facts. I mean, like a lot of us maybe, what would like to learn more about the past and whatnot, but it needs to be presented in a way that like it kind of brings people's attention. And like you were, reading all these different aspects like of horror and the R.L. Stine books, like in Fear Street, or like, learning the alphabet. Like you could learn the alphabet and sign language just without any of the puppets. But like at the same time though, yeah, exactly. It's so much more fun, and also entertaining. It's a weird way. It's like, it's an entertaining, empathetic way of getting to, where you can learn from this, not just as an entertainment value. It's something that actually is, there's real life consequences to all of the stuff that you just mentioned.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I also really loved the nonfiction too as a kid.
Sure,
like,
of course.
I was obsessed with animals, and I had these National Audubon guides. This one about African wildlife, like, seriously, this and any books about dogs or wolves. I still have these because I love them so much. but like there was a time where I wasn't reading much fiction. I didn't get it. I struggled in English class, and I stuck to nonfiction because I really loved animals and I really
Mhm.
wanted to learn more about them. But then like I had sort of an awakening later about how fiction can really help. I mean, like I get really mad when people are like, well, why do they even teach like British literature in school? And I was like, there are reasons. They make like reading literature makes us more human. It allows us to be in somebody else's shoes for a little bit. It helps strengthen our own morals and ethics, but then it
Yeah.
also can change them and evolve them. And it could. I mean, it just makes us more dynamic, more empathetic, more intelligent people. So I'm a big fan of both fiction and nonfiction. I think they both have their place. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always been that way too with because history was my major before I went into communication and got
Oh,
my degree.
I love history.
Yeah, and so that's so I was always drawn to nonfiction as well because I always would relate a little bit more towards learning about those facts or statistics or I mean there's some stories like I have like on the corner of me like I don't have it on me one of them but like the life and times of Ivan Dragovich or whatever uh,
Okay.
and then I also have this July 1914 book right here. It's been used a
Oh,
little
I've
bit.
heard of that one.
And so like during like high school and college like I would be reading a lot of these micro histories and whatnot and like it would really open my eyes to a lot of the things that like you were mentioning with Mouse. You'd get all these different aspects of stuff that you wouldn't normally you know I guess in everyday kind of scenario stuff of the past, like you're kind of everyone's so future based or what's going on right now that they
Mm-hmm.
they they kind of don't slow down to like look at what's happening then and like making sure that like that doesn't happen again. You
No,
know.
it's true. It's true. And so much of nonfiction is story based anyway. A lot of really good history books read like novels, it's
Mhm.
just truth. Truth sometimes is stranger than fiction. So it's really interesting to learn about the past. Yeah.
I like that you brought up the animals because zoo books were a really big part of my childhood.
Oh, that's
Like
awesome.
so I got zoo books in the mail, and I was obsessed with Jurassic Park, and so and I was always into like dinosaurs and animals as well, like early on. And I remember having like I think I had like this really colorful encyclopedia with different animals, facts and statistics, and so like, but that also like makes you empathetic towards other living creatures.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
or curious about the world. Like I think that's very good, very interesting, very good. But
It's both.
um, yeah. I guess moving from that aspect, do you remember kind of that shift to where like maybe later on in adolescence where you were kind of getting into adulthood, any transitions or shifts that you would focus on?
This book changed my life. This book right here. So I went to an agricultural high school. And I don't know how many people actually know this about me, but I was gung ho to be a wildlife biologist. I was going to go to Africa. I was going to study the bless box and the bounty box. And like, I knew all the names of like all the strange, like African creatures. That was going to be my goal. I even had a scholarship from UNH for zoology, and that was my path. And then in junior year in high school, I had this awesome English teacher. Her name is Mrs. Perkins. In fact, I actually wrote to her a few years ago to thank her for what she did for me. And now we're Facebook friends, and it's really nice. I got to reconnect with her that way. But she had us read this book, Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. And for anyone who doesn't know what this book is about, it's about a World War I soldier who has an accident where a hand grenade explodes in front of him, and he loses all of his limbs. He loses his arms and his legs. He can't see, can't smell, he can't taste anymore, he can't hear. The only sense he has is his touch. So he's kind of encased in his body. He doesn't know the passage of time anymore, and they're keeping him alive. And it's really interesting because he starts to communicate with the nurse through Morse code of him just slamming his head into the pillow. It's really interesting. It's an anti-war novel.
Right.
And when I was reading it, I was like checking to see if I still had like parts. I was just so engrossed, and I thought, I didn't realize that books could do this. They could absolutely transport you into somebody else's like body and feel things in this way. And I was just blown away. And then Dalton Trumbo
Yeah.
also has a classic film connection because he was a Hollywood screenwriter, was one of the Hollywood 10 who were blacklisted.
Right, blacklisted, yep.
And he actually also really, he was very liberal leaning. He's a little communist, you know, like he had communist ties and stuff. That's why he went to jail and everything. But a lot of his morals and ethics vibed with what I was feeling. You know, not to say we were like on the same level, but I found his stories to be very empathetic and really, really were focused on the everyman and their struggles. So I was really drawn to this book, and it just opened my eyes. Like it really just blew me away. And and she had us read other books. I think we read like Catcher in the Rye, and we read Ordinary People and other things, but that's the book that really blew my mind. And then during that semester, the second half of the semester, we got to pick what we wanted to read. And at the time I was getting really into period pieces that were coming out, because that was the time of like you know, all those adaptations of like Jane Austen novels and like Dickens novels, and like everything was getting adapted to film. So I was watching a lot of those, and I got to pick my own book to read. So I picked Jude the Obscure. I have a huge collection of these like movie tie-in books. People don't like them, but I love them because it kind of marries my love of books and movies. And this is a Michael Winterbottom film just called Jude, but this is the novel by Thomas Hardy, and it's Kate Winslet and Christopher Eccleston. So my goal was to read the book for class and then go watch the movie. And I really connected with this one as well. This one also kind of blew my mind because I was really, because of how I was raised in very strict religion, and I had a lot of issues with like repression. And so I was really drawn to Victorian novels about repression, and Thomas Hardy was perfect for that. And he's Jude is an intellectual who is held back by his circumstances, and I was really drawn to that storyline. You know, his desire to ascend his situation, and then his love for he really wanted to become a scholar, and his love for education and learning. And I was really nerding out on that. I was one of those weird kids who loved school and homework and stuff.
I enjoyed school too. So I get it.
Thank you. Another one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I moved my camera there. And then, so I was also blown away by this. And then I just got really into classic literature. Like I have like a few books here, like Little Women. It's another movie tie-in. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm from Massachusetts, so this story was really interesting on that respect. And then also Jo is like, you know, she's a writer. She's like, you know, a little different from everybody else. Very independent.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, strong-minded. I really resonated with. I love the movie. The movie is like one of my favorites. But really resonated with the book. And then like Henry James, like Portrait of a Lady, also had a huge impact on me. I read the book and then went to go see the movie. Same with Washington Square. They came, like, this was 1996. This was 97. The first time I ever drove to the city in a car with my learner's permit was to go see the adaptation of this novel. So like it closely, my love of books were closely tied to movies at the time. And like, I have like so many books. Sense and Sensibility also around that time. So it was 95, 96. So yeah, I have all of these, but like I was a huge Jane Austen fan, Henry James, Thomas Hardy. I loved all of those books. I just gobbled up classic literature. At the same time, I was like just devouring period pieces. Like something about those two things I really loved, and I would try to make it a goal of getting the book, reading it first, and then going to see the movie in the theater. So, and that was always a fun challenge for me. Almost like giving myself homework, but it was fun homework.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting because I've always been a person who's watched the film first and then read the book.
Yes, and I do that now. I was just like, I had more time on my hands.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, you know, it also like, and I know that it's very true with a lot of people who read books and then watch the movies, but generally the book is better, obviously, you know, 99% of the time. But at the same time, it's like I don't like to you know, make sure that my experience of watching the movie is like its own thing, and then you know, reading the book afterwards and be like you know what, the book is better, but I still kind of like the movie because I watched it first. So there's some aspects of it, but it's all dependent. But yeah, no, that makes sense that you'd go to period pieces and like you'd shift from that zoologist, you know, in yourself and like kind of get into like, you know, history and a lot
I became an English major.
Yeah.
I didn't end up going to UNH. I went to Framingham State College. Now it's university. And I was still ready to become a biology major, but then I took literature classes. I took a class on mythology. I read like the Odyssey and Ovid's Metamorphoses, and I was like, oh, I love this stuff. I love learning about all those like cultural references that we take for granted now, and like movies and other types of literature and like TV shows and things like that that come from mythology, you know, and connecting some of those things in like origins of like storytelling and all sorts of things, learning about that. And I was just like, I need to become an English major. So I transferred out of Framingham State and I went to Northeastern University as an English major, and I graduated from there with my bachelor's, and that was amazing. All I did was just read a bunch of literature and dissect it and write about it. And I took all sorts of classes like Irish literature, African American literature. I took a class on the Bronte sisters. Anything with mythology I did. I even took a nonfiction history class where we read a lot of interesting like alternative history books. Just things that are not just like the presidents and stuff, but things about like, you know, land and, you know, like misappropriation of like certain like cultures and things. It was really interesting. And I just, oh man, those years studying was so much fun. And then like before I transferred to Northeastern University, I was actually, before I even started college, I worked at a bookstore. And that was when I was 17 years old. So, and I'm still in the book industry. I've been in the book industry for many years since I was 17. I have not done anything else other than movie stuff. So, and then I ended up getting my master's in writing, literature, and publishing from Emerson. So this is like just showing you like my devotion to books. Like this is a lifelong thing from that potty book when I was a kid.
From that potty
book
when
I was a baby.
When you write a book, it's gonna be like that.
So it's been a lifelong passion for books. And like I mean, this thing with books is it doesn't matter like what it is you're looking for. There's a book for you. Like it's not like you have to read classic literature. You can read anything. You know, there are lots of different types of books. That's why just, you know, and it's helpful too to have a bookish husband, because he also like he'll steal some of my film books that I have behind me, and like he has a love for like books on history and fashion and cars and things like that. So it's nice to have a companion like that, you know, on your journey.
Yeah, and I look forward to that someday too. So actually, speaking of other people, who do you associate with your love of books? Like, was there anybody? Like, I know your mom. Nah, nobody. You just kind of came to it on your own?
Yeah, I had, so my mom did, you know, take me to the library, and I wasn't much of a library kid. I thought it was interesting just listening to Vanessa talk about how, having someone in her family, her aunt, guide her, and then going to the library was really crucial for her. I went to the library a little bit as a kid, but for me, it was bookstores. I was really just drawn to bookstores, and I wanted to own the books myself. But other than my mom taking me to the library early on, because she was very crucial in my early education, I learned I actually didn't learn English until I was 5 years old, or 4 or 5, in an ESL program in kindergarten. But I learned to read before I started kindergarten. So she was part of my early education, and that involved books. But otherwise, after then, I was on my own. I didn't really have a cultural education from my parents, and it was just my parents. All my family members were in other countries. So I had a very, very small family here. So it all came from me. All of it, and then also Mrs. Perkins, my English teacher, who made me read Johnny Got His Gun, and I'm so grateful for that, because that really opened my eyes to it. But otherwise, it's all been, it's almost like even though I had the education, it's almost like self-guidance, I was self-taught in a way. Like I forged my own path in that respect, and I still do. I don't you can't recommend things to me. Individuals can, but any kind of thing on Goodreads that recommends next thing to read. No, I know what I'm going to read.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I don't know. I'm jealous of people who have that kind of cultural education for someone important in their lives, but I did not have that, even with movies too. I got that all on my own. So I'm a weirdo that way.
No, it's a strong trait to have. I mean, we all kind of dream, I feel like, with school and stuff, because sometimes we said we're both the weird kids who liked school, but there are people who are not at all interested in school whatsoever, just because of the curation of how things are presented to you, right? You ask yourself why are we learning this thing that I'm never going to use? And a lot of people, depending on the subject and what you're interested in, there's some merit to that, and there's some truth to it. But a lot of the things that we're really interested in, on our own, the stuff that we self-discover, it's for me, it's for music was a huge part of that. That was all me, self-discovery. I had a little nudge at the beginning with classic rock with my parents, but I went further and further on my own. And I have friends who have mutual interests and whatnot, and that's a whole other discussion. But I can relate strongly to just kind of following what I'm interested in, the moods that I'm in, the things that I'm going to read, what I'm going to listen to next, or what I'm going to watch next. So I can relate to that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess we all have something in our lives that we just guide ourselves to, because some stuff comes from influence, and then some stuff is just, maybe something we're born with, that
some innate
we're
curiosity.
Always meant to gravitate towards anday, whether we got the guidance or not.
It's all from the potty book. So.
My mom will appreciate this.
That's good. Is she going to watch this?
Yeah, I'll probably send it to her. Yeah.
That's good. So I guess, and you may have answered it already, but also I want to kind of adjust this question, because I know I've only asked it once, but I've also asked it in my film journey stuff. But do you have a current favorite book? When I say that, I mean a current thing that's what you're reading right now, or anything that you've enjoyed for some time, and you would still enjoy it quite a bit?
So just trying to think, right now I'm reading primarily a lot of film books. This is actually, just to preface this, my husband and I recently installed this new bookcase that houses my classic film book collection, which is now kind of like a research library, which I love. So I read a lot of nonfiction books about classic film, and there's a lot of favorites. One I want to revisit, we were just talking about this earlier, is this book, Anne Dvorak, Hollywood's Forgotten Rebel, by Christina Rice. This is such a good biography because the author, you could tell the author's super passionate about this figure from classic film history that not a lot of people know about, who almost kind of like, you know, retired in obscurity during her time. And there wasn't a lot of information to find, but she found pretty much everything she could possibly find on Anne Dvorak, and she had like obstacles to overcome. So in a way, you're also following her journey, trying to discover more about her favorite film star while also learning about Anne Dvorak. And it's just so passionately written. And I really want to revisit it because it's been so long that I'm starting to forget aspects of it. I don't like that. That's one of those things. Like I can read a book and then like completely forget like years later what it was about. So I want to revisit this one because I'm just so drawn to the passion and the voice of the author, and I love research, so that really speaks to me. And I love research when it's really hard to find information. When it's easy to find information, that's boring. But when it's like a treasure hunt to find information, oh my goodness, that is just, I love that stuff. So I think in that respect, like this one, I really want to revisit. And I actually just bought another copy of this because I'm going to host a giveaway because I love this book so much that I want to share it with people. And I'm constantly talking up the book. It's one of my favorites. And then like one of my favorite authors who, I'll grab another book of hers here. Sloane DeForest. She, so I've always been a science fiction critic, like not critic, cynic. Science fiction cynic. And and I was just like there was a wall, there's a barrier between me and science fiction. I couldn't get past it. Because a lot of what I was drawn to with fiction was grounded in realism, you know, with like the classic literature that was, you know, grounded in like actual history.
Did mythology help a little bit with the science fiction love?
Yeah, I think it did because I ate that stuff up. I loved mythology, so that did help. But science fiction was always a struggle for me until I read Sloane DeForest's book, which is this one, Must See Sci-Fi.
There's Metropolis right there.
Yes, that's actually one of my favorite movies, so that's an exception, I guess, for me
too.
And the way she presented it, she gave a lot of context, like where do these films come out of? Like they come out of like, you know, Cold War angst or, you know, World War II or, you know, like there's
nationalism driving up in like, you know, with Germany with a lot of,
Exactly. They're born out of actual like, you know, things that are happening in the respective countries and cultures and things like that. They're inspired. Like you could learn about how like Metropolis inspires other movies, like how it inspired Star Wars and things like that.
Blade Runner, yeah.
There's and the connections. I think that's why like mythology was really good for me is because I was starting to connect a lot of dots. So like Sloane DeForest helped me connect a lot of dots with like, oh, like now I understand this reference or why this cultural icon is so important and why everyone, you know, loves Star Wars so much, or why like or even like films like Them or The Day the Earth Stood Still and like things like that, you know, where that comes out of. And then it made me want to watch more science fiction, which is it was very, very hard for me to get to that point, but she made it easy. So I was like, wow, this author's amazing. And she wrote another book, Dynamic Dames, which is about,
I've seen that one actually.
This is a great guide to like, it's like feminist film history in a really nice package. And I like this book, especially because of the earlier examples of really strong, complex female characters and the women who presented them, you know, who acted those roles. And I've heard from people say like, oh, I don't like classic films because they're sexist. And I was like, well, not all of them are sexist. There's actually a lot of really amazing early roles, like, you know, femme fatales and like strong pre-code dames and things like that. So this is like one of those good books to like convert somebody over to.
Yeah, introduce people.
I was like,
Yeah,
movies.
convert. Yeah, convert's a good word for it.
And I'm kind of drawn a lot to women writers. I'm like really trying to learn more living people, you know, and also just to like just to show another book too. I'm trying to read more about like one of my goals with my writing is to focus on diversity. So really focus on African Americans, Hispanics, Latinx, Asian Americans, LGBTQ, women in film, anything that was underrepresented disability in film, stuff like that. And then I have this one too, Hollywood Black by Donald Bogle. And this was a really good education in African American film history. So that's one thing I'm trying to branch out on. And this was really good. It packs too much in one small book though. It could have been like 5 books. But yeah, I'm trying to branch out and like really diversify my reading because like I'm trying to do like almost like a self audit on my reading and make sure I branch out. And one of the things I'm doing too is I'm Latinx and I have a collection of books by Latin American authors. So I'm really trying to dive into that too. And I'm also half Portuguese, so I have books by José Saramago, who is Portuguese. Things like that. I don't know. I just kind of went on a tangent, but
Oh, you're good. No, no, honestly, I think that's something that a lot of us in this community share, like just books or film in general, is just all these different pathways and doors that like unlock kind of an interest in certain things that we would never come across to in any other. I mean, if it's through these, you know, mediums that we're accessing these stories, and like we said near the beginning, it's an empathetic journey that we're going through, and like the more and more stories that you you know, put yourself in the shoes of, or like, you know, kind of you just read or you watch or you listen, then it becomes something that's like almost like a drug, at least to a certain personality type, to where it's like I just constantly want to learn more about other people.
yes.
And you know, and I think that's a good thing. And I
That's
think
why I love biographies. And I also why I love talking to people. I just really, I mean, I'm the type of person who in a conversation, like I won't say much about myself. Like this kind of format is different for me because I'm just used to asking people questions about themselves. I'm not used to talking about myself. But I'm so fascinated with the lives of other people. I want to learn more. So that's why like interviews, documentaries, biographies, even just fiction about other people's lives, just fascinating.
Yeah. And I couldn't said it better myself. Like that's literally like that's why I think we do these things, is because, you know, I'm coming at from the other end. Like I started I early on in my I guess late teens, early 20s, I was a little bit more self-centered. And I grew up kind of spoiled into now where I'm starting to, you know, learn more and more about other people. And I would credit it to a lot of the things that I've consumed or read or watched, or things that I have, you know, I've been around other people who've really kind of told me their stories. And it's really kind of just, you know, shed a light into my own worldview of things. And so like now I'm like, okay, well, yeah, of course. Like why do I have this such, insular kind of mindset? Like, no, it's very expansive and it's really helpful. And so I'm very appreciative of all my friends and, you know, these kind of conversations. I think it's wonderful. So.
And I'm glad you said that because I grew up the same way. I was kind of spoiled. I was very self-centered. And I think, you know, stories in general. Also, like I was a big TV kid. Like I love, like Punky Brewster was my thing in the 80s. And just like, yeah, it really made me less self-centered, you know, as I grew up. Just learning about other people and learning what other situations are like, and also appreciating what I had, but also realizing that not everyone has that same thing, and that doesn't make them any less of a person, you know. Like there's lots of things that I learned very young which were really important. That I mean, I got that from my parents obviously, but like books really, really helped in that regard, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they have. So this makes me think of another question of, and I know you read a lot of nonfiction, but you can answer this.
A lot of nonfiction.
You can answer it. You can answer it in a nonfiction way or in a fiction way. But if you could be any character in any book that you've ever read, you know who you would be?
Well, I wouldn't be the character in Johnny Jones.
Well, yeah,
He's
you
not
already were
named
like,
Johnny, but
do I have all these limbs?
I'm trying to think. Maybe I would be like Joe in Little Women. I just think it would be really interesting to live during that time. I mean, it's not that like I like to think about living in different time periods, although the Civil War is not necessarily something you want to live through. but
Right. Yeah.
but
Definitely.
like I think she's an interesting character. I gravitate towards her just because she's bookish and she likes to write and she's very outspoken. And I think it would be interesting because she's more brave than I am. She's more for like she's more outgoing, I guess, you know, and she's less scared about like really pursuing her dreams. And I would like some of that. So maybe that's a character.
That's a good choice. You know, and I will say that I haven't read Little Women, and I've only watched the late. I know. everyone stop.
It's
Get out of
okay.
this video. I actually haven't even watched the '90s film either. I've only watched the recent. Like,
I
adaptation.
haven't watched the recent one. I really want to. I heard so
good.
many good things.
Very
Yes.
good. Yeah. But you know, going backwards and going to read the book and watch the other adaptations. I think that's going to be a good process for me. And but yeah, no, I really did like that portrayal of Joe quite a bit. I want to say it was Saoirse Ronan who played.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
like,
Timothy
and I really
Chalamet.
yeah, and I like Timothy. And I like, but I love Saoirse. Like I just love her.
Oh, she's amazing. She's such an amazing actress.
Yeah, and
the way she
started.
she has a very thick. She's Welsh, right?
Am I getting
that right? And she's got a very thick accent, but she can switch to an American accent like nobody's business. And I was like, how do you do that? It's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good choice. I guess another question I would have would, if you could write a book, I have a feeling I might know the answer, but if you could write a book in any genre or any style, do you know what you would be writing?
So I've become really interested in second lives, like people who do one thing but also do something else on the side. So I would love to write a nonfiction book about that. You know, what are people's second passions? Like you and I were just discussing early before we started recording about Claude Rains. I did a research project on him, and he, well-known actor, very distinguished British actor, Hollywood,
you don't
Broadway.
See him too much.
Right. It's a little film called Casablanca.
Yeah. I was just joking about Invisible Man.
Oh, Invisible. I'm sorry. Oh, no, yeah. That was his like really like that was his like first film too that he made. And the reason he got hired for that was because his voice was so good. And then he was like, wait, you're not going to even see me for most of the movie? But he was a farmer on the side. And I thought, whoa, I need to learn more about this. And there's a lot of really interesting stories on the classic film history side. Edward G. Robinson was a big art collector. Tony Curtis.
Speaking of him, I'm watching this later.
Oh, great.
Yeah. There's Edward G. Robinson himself.
I mean, he was a famous art collector. Like people think of him as just like a gangster, but he was also like, he loved fine art. And he, Tony Curtis was a painter on the side and used to make these decorative boxes. And I've been having fun learning about, Sterling Hayden, another example. He actually just acted so he could have money to do sailing. Like being a sailor was his dream, but that didn't pay the bills, So acting paid the bills to fuel his passion for this other thing. So I would love to, I actually am of the mindset of like, if you're gonna do something, don't tell anybody you're gonna do it until you've actually done it. So this might not ever happen because
Right.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about it. But I've been writing articles about that sort of thing, and I think it would be really cool to have like a book of essays on different people and their other passions. It might not have to be film related, but
Right.
it'd be really cool. And another thing I love is the history of New Year's Eve. I'm just really fascinated with that particular holiday and the cultures that go with it, like the cultural traditions. It's different in every country. People have different things that they do for good luck. You
Mhm.
know, there's different things that are dropped or things that are burned, and like
Right.
eating the grapes, and like there's all sorts of like traditions. I think that would be a really fun book to write about, like a nonfiction book about the history of the traditions of New Year's. Yeah.
Well, as somebody who was just in China, I understand. Like I missed New Year's actually because it's a little bit later on in January
Right.
for them. So unfortunately I missed a lot of the celebrations. So, but yeah, no, that's fascinating. And also that reminds me too of when you said talking about the Second Life stuff. I know that Daniel Day-Lewis, like kind of more of a modern actor, he's
Hmm.
much like that because I know he works with what's the name of somebody who works on shoes?
A
I can't-
cobbler?
Yeah, he's a cobbler as well.
What?
Yeah.
I
So
did not know this.
and he's like but he's very private about all of that. So
Did he no, since he retired, right? Like
yeah,
is
he's
that what
retired
he's
since
doing
Phantom
full
Thread.
time, is the cobbler work?
I think so, but obviously that's all
Oh.
his himself. And he does his own thing. It's a very quiet man.
I'm gonna Google that because that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah, and he's also one of the best actors on our modern age, I guess.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
yeah, fantastic, and he seems like a decent guy. So, but
He
we don't
seems
really
like
know.
he takes like what he does very seriously, which I'm very drawn to people who are like that, you
Hmm.
know.
The craft. It's very craft
Yeah.
like. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good answer, and I've never thought about looking into more Second Life things or like yeah that's I'm gonna have to look into more of that myself. So you're gonna have to send me some stuff after this.
Well,
Without
I mean, this is something too we were talking about before we started recording, was like having multiple interests. Like everyone
yeah
has like multiple interests. They have their one big thing that they do, but then there might be some other thing that they're really passionate about. So it's really interesting when people, I mean, if you're an actor, you're more likely to have the time because maybe you're only working a few months out of the year on a film project, and then you have several months that you can take off and really devote to something.
yeah
So that's something like with Claude Rains, he would, be working on a project in Hollywood and then would retreat for several months to his farm in Pennsylvania, or
yeah
and that's something they can do, so that, and also, if you're like a successful actor, you have the funds to also fund your passion. So I just think that's really interesting. Like, what would you do if you had the time and the money? Like what other avenue would you pursue? It's just really interesting.
I think that's what makes life. I mean, obviously, we're talking about this kind of, from like that privileged position of like where you can get to, you can live out that secondary thing that you might want to do.
Not all of us have that.
Yeah, not all of us
Yeah.
have that, which
Time is money.
yeah, and that's something that's very interesting too. Like that it could be a whole other video on that. So, but I'll leave with one last question, which I think is the tough one. But if your life could have a book title, what would it be?
Someone did a prompt on Twitter saying that like the last text that you got, or the last text that you sent,
I
is
saw
the
that.
title of your memoir, and mine was "Everything Okay?" question mark. I thought that was hilarious. Which I don't know if that speaks to like my life, but could, is everything okay? Is everything like okay, move forward? I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that.
Would there
I
be
don't have
like the silly answer would be something like from potty book to and then all the way up where you're at now or what you're continually doing. But I've always had a fascination with like coming up with titles. When I used to write academic papers when I was getting my master's degree, that's the thing I really loved doing the most was coming up with like the titles of like my papers.
Oh, can you please help me with the titles of my articles? Because I do not
Yeah,
have that
potentially.
talent.
Just tell me.
I'm just awful. I'm
Give me.
awful at that. I love the actual writing of the article, but when it comes to naming the article, I'm like, oh damn, I don't know what to call it. I think if
What?
I wrote a memoir, I would have the editor name it for me. I don't
Well,
think I could name it.
if you need help with, if you do write a memoir, I'll help, and I don't need any credit. Just like it's.
Oh no,
You know.
I would totally credit you.
But I love coming up with titles. So
Oh man, no, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that. Maybe everything okay is the best.
everything okay? Question mark.
Yes.
That's a good one. So do you have any other thoughts about your book journey you want to share?
Well, can I show you what I'm reading or
Yeah,
what
of
I'm going
course.
to be
Yeah,
reading?
what are you currently reading, or what are you about to read?
So I'm currently reading this book here. It's The Battle for Beverly Hills, A City's Independence and the Birth of Celebrity Politics. Now, this is the history of Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills was kind of like an escape for classic movie stars who wanted to get out of Los Angeles. And it almost got annexed into Los Angeles proper, but they fought against it. And it's about the history of the of Beverly Hills and how classic film stars became like built it up to what it became, and how it stayed so different from Los Angeles. I thought that was super interesting. And there's also some like bad things about it too. Like I think at one point it was like whites only, and they didn't want anybody from a different race living there, and then how that changed. So it's a really interesting book. So the good and the bad. So that's what I'm reading now, and it's slow going because then like I was reading this and I stopped so I could read this.
Oh yeah.
This is like you had read Fright Favorites by David
Yeah.
J. Scull. He wrote this one, this
okay.
biography on Claude Rains, along with Claude Rains' daughter Jessica Rains.
Oh wow.
So I literally stopped reading this so I could read this. That happens a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say that probably happens a lot.
And then like a couple of books that I got like for review, which I'm excited for. This was Hollywood, Forgotten Stars and Their Stories by Carla Valderrama. If anyone likes classic movies and you want to get books, like look up TCM and Writing Press. They have like a joint imprint that's really amazing. And this is like just sort of my jam, like lesser known people from Hollywood. And it's a really nicely designed book. So I'm excited to read that one. And then the last one I just got is this one. She Damn Near Ran the Studio, The Extraordinary Lives of Ida R. Koverman. And I'm really interested in stories about people further behind the scenes, in old Hollywood, like the golden age of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And this is somebody who was super influential at MGM. And you usually think MGM, Louis B. Mayer. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is something I want to read. I don't necessarily need to read more about Louis B. Mayer, but I would like to read more about this person. So that's what I have on my docket right now.
That's a good docket, a good queue. I think those are all. I mean, like you were saying, you're probably going to go back and forth between kind of what you're interested in at the moment, because like I mean, just like all of us, I feel like all of us are like, oh yeah, I got to finish that box set of that set of films. Like, but I'm also interested in this right now. That's something that is constantly a struggle. But
I know I have the Bruce Lee box set from Criterion. I'm just so excited to dive in, but then I get. Oh, yes. I'm so excited to dive in, but then I keep getting distracted by other things. There's not enough time to do everything.
I just finished the Bruce Lee biography from a few years back.
Oh, I saw a documentary about him recently that was just like amazing. And I was like, why haven't I seen his films? So I just did a blind buy when they came out with that set and they had the flash sale. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
It's a good series, and it's also got a lot of good special features on it. So
oh, good. Yeah. I'm excited.
Well, that's good. You have anything else to say about your book journey?
So one thing I do that I've done since 2013 is I host a classic film reading challenge every summer. So basically I encourage people who are classic film fans who have books. all of us end up getting books and we don't necessarily have time to read them. I challenge people to read six of those books over the summer. They could be biographies, they could be coffee table books, they could be and novels that were adapted into classic films. So there's a huge range, and I get usually between 20 to 40 participants every summer, and you can read up to 6 books. You could read more if you want. Vanessa always reads like way more
Of
than the
course.
6. Or you could just read one, or you could read any in between. But and you have to review them online. That's proof that you read the book. So reviewing on a blog or on Goodreads or on people do really cool Instagram posts with their reviews, podcast reviews, YouTube reviews.
Yeah.
There's a deadline in mid-September. So people sign up in May, and you have till mid-September to read all the books and review them. And then the people who read all 6 books are automatically entered into a giveaway. And the giveaway is basically, I usually pick 3 winners out of that group, and they can pick any DVD from the Warner Archive collection. And it's open internationally, and Warner Archive DVDs aren't available internationally, only available in the US. So I've had people from Australia and the UK and Sweden like enter and win, and I'll buy it for you and I'll send it to you. So that's like a nice a nice goal to have. It's like you don't win another book, you just win a movie.
Yeah, that's wonderful though. Yeah.
So that's my way of encouraging people to read the books that they already have that are just collecting dust on their shelves, you know.
Yeah, and so it starts in May, you said, is when that
Yeah,
happens?
it usually starts like late May, and then you have all the way through. Yeah, and if you kind of gauge it right, like it's a little over 3 months. But if you read 2 books a month, you'll get to the 6 pretty easily.
Well, I hope that people will watch this video like maybe around April and May, like remember. But like, I'm definitely going to be promoting that once that gets closer too.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Just remind me. Yeah, and
I'll
be making sure to try to participate as well in it.
Yes, please. That would be so amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and I read and I watch and I listen all the reviews. Like everyone who submits something, I actually will make the effort to go and read and comment and support. So, you know, it'll like I'm here. It's like a group effort, but you're also doing it on your own too. It's not a book club or something like that. You can pick what you want, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I can't wait to participate in that. And I hope a lot of people who are watching this will as well. But where can everyone find you? I know there's a lot of places to go.
Yes. So my blog is Out of the Past. It's outofthepastblog.com. I have a YouTube channel that goes with it. If you just go to youtube.com/outofthepastblog, you can find me. I have an Instagram, Kel Movies. I have a blog about new movies called kelmovies.com. I also write for Turner Classic Movies on their blog and their website. I write for DVD Netflix. I write for The Film Detective. I do a lot of writing. And I'm on some podcasts too as a special guest. Those links are on my main blog. So you can find all the articles I've written. Thank you. So they're all in one place because I'm technically all over the place. So I try to kind of contain it.
Well, it's wonderful, and I mean, it just shows, like, obviously, just this whole conversation just shows how interested you are in all these different aspects of life, and I think,
thank you.
Just like with, all the things that you're involved with, I think that just shows how passionate you are about this, and so I think I want to thank you for, joining me on this second book journey, because this is wonderful, and I'm meeting a lot of new people, and I couldn't be happier about how this year is turning around for me. So.
And I'm so glad I got to meet you this year. This has been really great, and I've been watching your videos and reading your blog, and it's been getting a chance to be able to sit and talk to you has been really wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. Like like I said, it's just going to continue to get better. So I already know.
Yay!
So, yeah. Well, I want to say thank you all for watching this video. I hope everyone made it to the end so they can explore and kind of ask some questions yourselves, and I'm sure that Raquel and I will also like be looking at the comment sections and answering any questions that you might have, any conversations that might have sparked up. I'm really interested, and so is Raquel, in what you have to say about this book journey. So thank you, Raquel, once again for joining on this second episode of Book Journey, and I'll sign off by saying, give this video a like, comment down below, share this video, hit that notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.